Jake has dedicated his entire life to training horses, typically selling them for a substantial profit. However, the horse he had been training for the past few months exhibited remarkable potential, prompting Jake to enter him in a competition. Unfortunately, disaster struck when the jury evaluated the horse. In hindsight, Jake realized he should never have entered this particular horse in the competition. When a jury member saw the horse entering the arena, he quickly approached Jake and told him that his horse needed a blood test before it could race. Jake realized this was unusual, but he couldn't say no. Reluctantly, he went to the vet. 10 minutes after taking the blood sample, the vet returned with the head of the jury, but his horse was not with them. Before Jake could ask where it was, the vet told him he had called the police, and they were on their way. Jake felt heartbroken and confused. The head of the jury told him that the horse should never have been in the competition and asked what Jake had done to the animal. Jake was shocked. He had only trained the horse, or had his new trainer done something wrong? When the police arrived, they immediately started questioning Jake. He was in disbelief, wondering what he had done wrong. They told him that his horse was in surgery and that they hoped it would survive. They demanded answers. Jake answered questions about himself and the horse that he had owned for about a year. When he was done answering all the questions, he heard disbelief from the surgery room. "I can't believe this," said the vet. But what had the vet found inside the horse that surprised him so much? Before Jake could even figure out what was going on, he was escorted from the arena by the police. He was treated like a criminal, and he didn't even know what was happening. Everyone was staring at him, pointing fingers. Jake felt ashamed. When he was thrown into the police car, he asked one of the officers if his horse was all right. Jake was extremely worried. The officer told him to be quiet. The poor animal was in surgery and had a chance of not making it out. Jake began to sob. He cared a lot for the animal. He demanded that the officers take him back to the veterinarian. They told him he had some serious nerve demanding that from police officers. He was being taken to the nearest police station to be questioned. The 10-minute drive felt like forever for Jake. His thoughts were constantly with his horse, Shadow. He still didn't fully realize the trouble he was currently in. However, when Jake was put into the interrogation room, everything seemed extra serious. The officers told him he had a few minutes to think while they checked with the vet if his horse was still alive. After that, the questioning would begin. Jake felt his heart sink. His horse was apparently in a life-threatening situation, and he couldn't be there. After the time had passed, the officers came back. They assured Jake that his horse was still barely hanging on and that he needed to answer all of their questions to make sure the horse survived. Then it hit Jake. He had to cooperate as best as he could, even if he was innocent. Jake told the police that he had been training the horse for about a year and wanted a strong competitor for races. When he found this horse, he believed it could win every race. The officers pressed him for details about where he got the horse. Jake recounted how his old horse and best friend had just died, which deeply affected him and his wife, Jessica. Feeling overwhelmed, he became desperate for a new horse to escape his pain. In his haste, he started cutting corners and trusting the wrong people, leading to the trouble he now faced. The officers urged him to hurry up with the story. If Jake wasn't the one who caused the horse so much pain and suffering, they had to know who was responsible for this horse. Jake could only think of two people who could have caused this. His first instinct was the animal shelter they got the horse from. The owners were a little shady. The horse was already pretty strong, but not as muscular as he was at the moment. The police captain got a little irritated. He demanded more information. Jake told them that he came across the horse breeders online. There were two breeders present. The first breeder gave off the wrong vibe from the start. Although the horses were strong and Jake wanted to win races, he did not trust the guy. However, the second breeder seemed genuine. This second breeder, Brian, had two Shires ready to be sold. The Shire looked stronger than most of the horses. Jake knew immediately that with the right training, he could win every single race. Jake remembered asking the breeder how the horse became so strong, but Brian avoided the question, which seemed suspicious in hindsight. Despite this, Jake was captivated by the horse's muscular build and beautiful dark brown eyes, and he knew he had to have it. The police needed more information about Brian to verify the horse's sale and requested the paperwork, but Jake mentioned that Brian would email it later. Months had passed, and Jake had forgotten about it, not even providing identification. The police decided to trust Jake for now and began searching for Brian, suspecting he might be hiding something. Jake identified the breeder as Brian Ramos. When the police checked their database, they found that Brian was a licensed breeder and called him in for questioning. Everything was eventually cleared up when Brian provided the necessary paperwork and blood samples from before the sale, allowing him to be released. The police then turned their attention back to Jake. Now they turned once again to Jake. He had some explaining to do. Jake was sick to his stomach, but he now had an idea of who had probably gotten him into this trouble: his horse trainer. Immediately after Jake got the horse, he started looking for a new trainer to train his new prized possession. This Blake told Jake that he would be able to get the horse ready for competition in no time. Jake started to wonder if this was the right decision, but went along anyway. It was suspicious that every time the trainer came to Jake's ranch, he couldn't watch him train the horse. Still, Jake noticed the horse getting stronger each week, growing very muscular, and he believed he could win any race. His ambition blinded him. The officers thought Jake was losing his mind and must have made up the trainer. The police captain overheard and asked Jake to describe Blake for a drawing to help him calm down. After about an hour, they were ready to show the drawing to the captain. The questioning officers were skeptical but complied. They scanned the drawing to match it with known individuals in the police database. Suddenly, they got a potential hit. The police captain, looking shocked, instructed the officers to follow him and place Jake in a holding cell. Jake felt helpless and began to cry. He just wanted to go home. After years of hard work, he was now in a cell for a crime he didn't commit. The captain's pale face and strange behavior only added to Jake's confusion. Had they found Blake? Jake used his phone call to reach his wife, Jessica. What he heard shocked him. His horse was making headlines. If the real culprit wasn't caught, Jake's troubles were only beginning. Hours later, the police captain returned, leading Jake to another room. Through a one-way mirror, Jake saw a lineup of 5 men. The captain asked him to identify the one who trained his horse. Jake immediately recognized his former trainer, number 4. Though the captain warned him not to celebrate just yet, the man denied involvement, claiming to be someone else. But a background check revealed he was Danny, a criminal with a history of medical fraud. The police secured a warrant to search Danny's home, uncovering illegal substances, mistreated animals, and an enormous snake in his living room. An officer explained that Danny had a pattern of testing experimental treatments on animals. Even though Jake was cleared of any wrongdoing, he still didn't know what had happened to his horse. Wanting answers, he convinced the officers to let him see his horse at the vet's office, where the animal was having surgery. When he arrived, the receptionist assured him that his horse was alive. Moments later, a loud noise came from the surgery room, and the vet came out holding a strange object, a microchip. This chip, found during an ultrasound, was connected to Danny. It sent electrical signals during races and was linked to a substance that enhanced the horse's performance. These illegal changes were part of a plan to create and track top racehorses, eventually stealing them for profit. The police used the chip to investigate Danny's operation and break up the criminal group. Meanwhile, Jake decided he would never compete again. He kept his horse and treasured their time together with his family. Instead of racing, Jake focused on horse trading, making sure his beloved horse lived a happy and peaceful life.